Welcome back to A Rifleman's Journal. This week, Greg is hunting outside of Valencia, Spain, located near the eastern coast.
Arriving in camp was like a family reunion. Mike Ambrose is a longtime friend of mine. He lives just down the road. We play golf together every week, and we've hunted together all over the world. So it's great for us to hunt together and to meet up with Herman, Jose, and Juanto again, because we've hunted with them in Argentina and on my place in Texas. Those guys are always cutting up, and they really make every hunt fun. But at the end of the day, they're tough, dedicated hunters too.
A steady rain the first night saw Greg and crew getting a late start. After lingering over their morning coffee until the rain blew through, they headed out to the shooting range to verify that Greg's gun was still zeroed.
¿Listos? Espera, a ver. 84 metros. Más o menos. Este es lo que ves. ¿Listos? Se rompe la cámara. Este es el primero de Greg. Este es el segundo de Greg. Primero de Mike. Segundo de Mike.
So this is my first one, this is my second one, and then Mike's just shooting just a little above me, but right on line. That's about 1.5 inches right there. I think we'll probably pretty good, Mike.
I'm fine. Yeah.
¿Está bien?
Está bien.
Sí.
No falta
I
más,
think
¿no?
that's good. No, I think that's good.
Once they confirmed that his .280 was still dead on, the hunting party headed out into the hunting area to put their binoculars to work.
Vamos a subir por ahí, nos metemos un poquito más abajo para que no te...
Well, we spotted a big billy this morning. Unfortunately, he's in a pretty tough spot. The wind's bad, so we're going to try to work around the other side of this mountain, get the wind in our favor, and see if we can't find him. He's bedded down in some thick brush, so we'll see what happens.
After spotting a big billy across the valley, the crew worked across the mountain to try to get the wind in their favor so they could close the distance. Unfortunately, the terrain ended their stalk, so they settled into a comfortable overlook to plan another approach. As the sun warmed the valley, the wind switched and began to blow up the opposite face, right towards the billy they were after. To make matters worse, a young goat herder walking up the valley sent the herd over the top of the mountain. The fleeing billy dashed the crew's hopes for the morning hunt and sent them back to the vehicles. After lunch and the obligatory siesta, the guys headed out to try a few very unlikely lookouts. A Rifleman's Journey. We'll be right back. This segment is presented by Proof Research. In everything we do, we give you proof. Welcome back to A Rifleman's Journal. Hunting in Spain requires a much different style than most people are used to.
You know, back home we crave open spaces and we try to get away from people, but here in Spain, it's just not possible. There are roads everywhere, and these guides all have their favorite lookouts. We'll be driving down the road, they'll just pull off the shoulder or into some little cutoff, even right in the middle of the road and park, and just get out and start glassing. It's not quite what we're used to, but the people are surprisingly friendly and they're used to it. We just stopped on this one road, an old man pulled over and told us where he'd seen some ibex and asked if he could join us for the evening. We don't have room for him, but it wasn't quite what I expected.
Accompanying Greg on this hunt is good friend and avid hunter Mike Ambrose.
Well, the hunt of the ibex is a bit different. You're not in a completely uninhabited area. You are in a rural area in the mountains with communities around you all the time. You usually spot your ibex from the car, from the road, and we have seen many of them here. The quality is beyond what I really expected. We departed just before dark and went to an area off the side of the highway where the mountains came down into some meadows. Very shortly we spotted what I thought was a really great ibex. But I was immediately picked up in Spanish that this was not really what we were looking for, although I was quite amazed. Soon, though, what they were expecting to find did show up, and I became extremely excited. We stalked down to within about 255 yards, some 200 yards. Got into position, waited for the ibex to clear and waited for him to show himself, and they were down feeding. A habit of the ibex is to come down and feed off the mountains in the evening.
Just put it, bracket it with the line, the circle, because the angle's not bad now.
It was a really great ibex. I was fortunate and made a pretty decent shot from 255 yards. The ibex went down, and he grew with every step that I took as I went towards him. A true gold medal animal.
Actually, what Juanto was telling me is they were, you know how they kept running? Yeah. They're trying to beat each other to the best grass. Ah, okay. And so that's what they were doing. They were racing to try to get the best grass. They actually never knew we were there. And he didn't even know what hit him. I mean, he just died.
Yeah, well, I lost him in the scope, but I saw the other one run off. That's why when you said get back on him, I went, well, is it the one running? And
I almost told you you missed, but I thought you might have a heart attack, so I decided not to. Vamos, porque no hay mucha luz. I'm really impressed with how well these guides know their hunting area. Though we're hunting a huge mountain range, these guys have scouted so much that they know exactly where these big billies live. This area is incredible. It's not too far from Valencia. It's got a very rich history. The entire countryside is just dotted with these walls and terraces, most of which were built by the Moors. And the terraces allowed the people out here to be able to grow crops on the sides of these mountains. And the rocks, I guess, were for the sheep and goats, but it's just unbelievable. There are thousands of miles. Everywhere you look, there are fences, making all these tiny little pastures on these vast expanses. I cannot imagine how many people and how many years it took to build all those walls and terraces, but it's absolutely stunning. This house was built in 1601. Now, Jose and Juanto, they gutted it out when they bought it, and they have completely restored it. It's absolutely beautiful, probably one of the nicest lodges we've ever stayed in, but they've kept a lot of the historically significant features. Down in one basement, there's a wine press, and complete with a tub recessed in the ground, and then a spigot from that where the wine, when they would press the grapes, would flow into the vats where they made the wine. There's a sort of a root cellar where they allow their hams to age, and just a lot of other neat features that you don't see anywhere else. It's all rock, all beautiful wood inside. It's one of the nicest, if not the nicest lodges we've ever stayed in on a hunt. Man, these Spaniards love to eat. Every time we stop to glass, someone breaks a snack out of their pack. And at mealtime, they lay out enough food for an extra 8 or 10 people. Then they do their best to try to get you to try everything. It's a good thing we're climbing mountains every day.
A Rifleman's Journal. We'll be right back. Welcome back to A Rifleman's Journal. You can't hunt the mountains effectively without good optics. Greg and crew used their binoculars to find distant ibex. When they spotted a likely billy, they would zoom in for a closer look with their 20 to 60 power Nikon spotting scope. But they didn't need the spotting scope to know this billy was worth climbing for.
It's rough country, so for a billy to carry horns for 11, 12, 13 years to let him get that long, it's pretty rare. But when we spotted him across that valley, Lucas saw him maybe a mile away, and the first thing he said was, "Oh, oh." And I knew that this was definitely a billy we were going after, even before I picked up my binocular. I think that's good.
La casa aquella.
Sí,
una
muy
masía
alta,
que está
sí,
arriba,
sí, sí,
baja,
sí.
baja, baja. A donde hay árboles, hay unas rocas, allí hay 5 salvajes.
Ok, la masía arriba.
Hay una masía arriba en la niebla. Allá,
Arriba de la
recto,
niebla.
a la
Sí,
niebla,
sí.
casi la niebla. Bajas
Sí.
al pico de
Aquí en la
enfrente,
derecha, ¿sí?
no, recto abajo,
Ah, ok.
y que sube, hay un pico, y ahí
Sí.
hay un corte de roca.
Sí, sí. Ok. Well, the guys have located a tremendous billy. He's probably 3/4 of a mile away on this mountain behind me. He's in a really tough spot to get to. It's going to be a long climb up, but the good part is it's a good spot as far as him being comfortable. He's bedded down with a couple of nannies. He gets up every once in a while and stretches or chases one of them around, but he doesn't seem to be going anywhere. We got most of the day. I think we got a pretty good shot, so we're going to head over there and start climbing.
The hunters had to drive all the way back through town and around the backside of a distant mountain before they could begin the long climb that would bring them out above the Big Billy.
He wants me to stay back because he doesn't want us to pop over and have those goats see us, so I'm just gonna hang back here until he calls me up. Hopefully he's still down there with those nannies. Once we got there, we had a little trouble finding him. Lucas couldn't see him. He was glassing from where we'd seen him a mile away or so, and someone had come by in a car, and the roads here are tiny, and they needed him to move so they could get by. And the Billy, he said, just looked very content. He was laying down and getting up every once in a while and eating, and he thought he'd stay right there. Lucas moved his car 20 feet, came back, and he was gone. So by the time I'd gotten up there, we weren't sure where that Billy was.
Though they suspected he was still bedded down in the area, they couldn't find him despite using their binoculars to pick apart every bush on the mountain. Finally, after hours of glassing, Lucas spotted them when some of the females stood up to feed.
We've been up here for a few hours working our way around this rim trying to find that Billy. We just located him. He's moved off about, not too far, maybe a half mile from where we saw him before. He's in a good spot. It's going to be a steep downhill shot if we can get above him, but it's too far to take from here. It's a little over 600 yards. Got a little bit of wind in these mountains. It's just not worth the risk, so we're going to circle around, try to close the distance, see if we can get to 250, 300 or something, and have a little better shot at him.
Before the break, Greg and the professional hunters guiding him located an ibex, but needed to move in closer.
I didn't want to risk the shot at 600 yards because the wind in those mountains is really fickle. I mean, you have a left to right wind in one spot and you walk 200 yards down the ridge and it's right to left. It was really weird the way they were swirling. We're getting a lot of weird weather as winter comes here. So we decided to try to get closer. This hunt was much tougher than I expected. The terrain is a lot rougher and steeper than I imagined, and even though there are lots of ibex, getting into rifle range is very difficult. I knew it was going to make things tougher, and sure enough it did. As we got closer, all the terraces that were below us blocked our view. So we were there for at least an hour, and eventually Juanto and Herman just started throwing rocks down the bottom, trying to get them to stand up or move where we could see them. And sure enough, they just started moving off to our left. And I caught a glimpse of him, but not long enough to shoot. So I got on a path ahead of us with my rifle and just waited. And it didn't take long before Juanto got all excited, and I knew he was coming. A second later, he stepped out on that path and just gave me a perfect shot. 315 yards, prone off the pack. Pretty much a chip shot, but I didn't have long to make it. Unfortunately, it all worked out. That was an awesome hunt. We spotted that Billy this morning. He is a huge Billy. and we've been on him all day. We lost him for a couple of hours up here on the mountain. It's really cold. We got fog moving in, it's really windy, but we've been just working back and forth along the rim, glassing. We have Lucas across the valley glassing from where he is. And we found it a little while ago. It was a little over 600 yards, and we tried to close the distance. We got here, and we spooked a couple of them, and we weren't sure what happened to him. We sat here for a while, and finally, the last place we'd seen him was this pine below us. So the guys started having a rock chunking contest, trying to hit the pine, and eventually, they didn't hit them, but I guess they got close enough that they just got nervous and they filed out of here, unfortunately, right into some trees. But they came out on top of one of these millions of rock walls that are out here, and he stopped for just long enough for me to get on him and smoke him, and it is a huge building, un tremendo, ¿no? Muy grande. A lot more work for us today, but it was a great hunt, a great stalk. Way more challenging and rewarding than I expected, and it's a fantastic animal. ¿Cuántos años tiene ese?
Este animal tiene 11 años y tiene unos cuernos muy bien marcados, muy grueso y es así más recto.
Now he's saying that it's a very old animal. It's 11 years. You can clearly see these distinct annular rings on the horns, and it's probably going to throw its 12th ring here pretty soon. So it's an old animal, very mature. And he was dogging a couple of females all morning, so he's ready for the rut. A great one to take. Sadly, I lost a little bit of that one horn tip when he fell. It was a great trophy. I'm real proud of him, and it was a great hunt. Muchas gracias.
A ti por venir a visitarnos.
Gracias, hermano.
Bienvenido.
The hard work really started when the crew got Greg's gold medal ibex loaded up in their packs and started heading up the mountain. But the tough climb is a sweet reward for all the hard work, dedication, and patience it took to connect on Greg's once-in-a-lifetime trophy.